Oh.
Certainly, we have some good news coming in this morning. President Trump gave a press conference. Is that what you call it? I don't know. A speech, a ramble, anyway, in the Rose Garden, in which he did indicate that he would sign the bipartisan legislation that was put forth by the House and the Senate so that we will avoid a second government shutdown. So that's good news. He also alerted us to the fact that we have a national emergency and that he has already signed the paperwork. I think, however, that the president got one thing wrong, and that is, I agree, we do have a national emergency, and it is that we have a lunatic in the White House. Yeah, that's the emergency. Hello, there's no one driving the ship. Excuse me, Titanic headed straight for iceberg, no one at the wheel. There's a crazy person at the wheel. This is a man who is not right in the head. And listen, it's not his fault. Something is wrong. Like, there is a chemical problem with his brain. The synapses are not firing. And what's even weirder about all of this is that 80 some odd % of Republicans think he's great. How? I don't understand. I'm going to play you. Look, I don't know how long he spoke altogether. He spoke for, I don't know, let's say 10, 20, 30, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before he started taking questions. So like 10, I don't know. I didn't time it. And then he took questions for a while. So the whole thing altogether was probably 30 minutes. Does that sound right, Nick? Something like that. Anyway, my point is, by bringing up the length of it, is that he was all over the place from a topic standpoint. And I think the reason 80-something% of you, not my listeners, but the rest of you are supporting, some of my listeners are supporting him, is because you're not listening to the whole speeches. You're listening to the sound bites that we pull, and so it's on us. And you're listening to the sound bites that Fox News pulls or CNN pulls, and you're thinking, oh, well, yeah, that made sense, or that didn't. But you have to hear the whole thing because, and we couldn't play the whole thing or we would have no show. But we tried to pull like some longer clips than we normally do just to give you a true sense of the lack of logic in this person's brain. Let's listen to this first one.
So the order is signed, and I'll sign the final papers as soon as I get into the Oval Office, and we will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there. And we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we'll get a fair shake, and we'll win in the Supreme Court. Just like the ban, they sued us in the Ninth Circuit, and we lost, and then we lost in the appellate division, and then we went to the Supreme Court, and we won.
What the? It sounds like a first grade classroom getting together, and that's the teacher trying to teach them the song. Like, you go to the Supreme Court, and that's where you take your case, and then you don't win. You go to the Ninth Circuit, and then you go here, and then you go there.
And Pluto is the ninth planet from the sun.
Right.
I remember that.
Right. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Come on, won't you sing with me? I mean, what is going on? It's not an emergency if you're this is a side note, but it's not an emergency if you're taking a 4-day vacation weekend the minute you declare it. The sky is falling. We have a national emergency. I'm going to Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to play a few rounds of golf. What emergency is that? It's like if I called 911 and I was like, oh, 911, I've got an emergency. Can I get you a beer? Can I send a beer to, I wanted to get your sizes so I could pick out some clothes for you on Amazon.com. What is going on? This man is truly unhinged. And if you're not sure that I'm right about this, I want to tell you that he started out by talking about China. The press conference was all over the place. Nick already filled me in on the length of it. It was 35 minutes of him alone talking, and then another 25-ish minutes of Q&A. Do we have time to play the China clip, or should we save that for? All right, let's listen to this discussion about China and them putting fentanyl on their drug list.
their criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called the death penalty. Our criminal list, a drug dealer gets a thing called, how about a fine? And when I asked President Xi, I said, "Do you have a drug problem?" "No, no, no." I said, "You have 1.4 billion people. What do you mean you have no drug problem?" "No, we don't have a drug problem." I said, "Why?" "Death penalty. We give death penalty to people that sell drugs."
It's like sort of trying to
End of problem. What do? We set up blue ribbon committees. Lovely men and women. They sit around a table, they have lunch, they eat, they dine, and they waste a lot of time. So if we want to get smart, we can get smart. You can end the drug problem. You can end it a lot faster than you think. But President Xi's agreed to put fentanyl on his list of deadly drugs. And it's a criminal penalty, and the penalty is death. So that's frankly one of the things I'm most excited about in our trade deal. You want to know the truth? I think maybe there's no more important point.
Yeah, the thing I'm most excited about in our trade deal is that China kills their drug dealers. And by the way, if you were listening to that, he also pretty much said if we want to end the drug problem here in the U.S., we could just do the same thing. That's pretty much what that was about. So national emergency, lunatic in charge. Lunatic